Jerry Jones acknowledged this, so I'm not speaking for him. He spoke for himself. Yeah. You're going to look at long-term versus short-term a lot differently as you approach the waning years of your life. And I'm not wishing that on Jerry, but look, I experienced that with Al Davis. During Al's last years with the team, fans were very critical of decisions he was making, saying, hey, those aren't in the long-term interests of the team or the best long-term interests. Right. And what I'm thinking to myself as I hear that is, he knows he doesn't have a long-term.
Well, we talked about this last week with Stephen A. Smith on our podcast. And if you missed that, you can go find it on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast. But we talked about that exact thing, Albert, about the lack of people telling Jerry what time it is, whether they're afraid to do so, whether it's his family. Stephen actually spoke directly to his family through this very podcast. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as Amy brought up that valid point.
Yeah, I think Jerry's... I mean, it's interesting because I think Jerry has some, I would say, competing priorities. And one that, like, he's been sort of the leader of the pack in the idea that teams are spending too much on dead money on coaches' contracts. Now, that's a rabbit hole we can jump down. I guess the Panthers would be a good example, right? They're still paying Matt Rule and Frank Reich while they employ Dave Canales as their head coach. So like that's put them in this difficult spot where, you're allowing for a coach's contract to run out. And I think if Mike McCarthy had, say, 2 years left on his deal, he'd probably still be there right now. But it's complicated doing a completely new contract with a coach. And it's put them in a spot now where it feels like they've got to start over a little bit. And so now Jerry looks at it and, again, like he wants to go chase a championship badly, but his business principle there kind of, I think, put the team in a tough spot. And now you go from having an experienced Super Bowl winning coach in Mike McCarthy, who won 12 games 3 years in a row for you, and I think had a pretty representative effort from his team this year, even after the quarterback went down for the year, and you're back kind of in the wilderness looking for one. So, how do you find a coach who's ready to go? Is that Kellen Moore? Is that Deion Sanders? Is that Steve Sarkisian at Texas? I don't think they know right now. And it's an interesting spot to be in because they're so deeply invested in Dak. They're so deeply invested in CeeDee Lamb. Micah Parsons is not going to come cheap. I mean, I'm telling you right now, I think he's going to want $40 million a year. So you're really kind of invested in a small group of players. You got an older owner. And yet the coaching situation is in flux because of this business principle. It's a really weird spot that they're in.
Check out new episodes of What the Football with Suzy Shuster and Amy Trask every Tuesday. Watch us on the Rich Eisen Show YouTube page or follow and listen wherever you get your podcasts.